I heard my husband, Richard, charged $100 an hour for private tutoring. A student of his, Chloe, was practically begging me to save a spot for her. In my previous life, I couldn't bear to turn her away, so I helped her. A month later, everything my family had built came crashing down. Rumors spread through the school like a raging wildfire. Students whispered that Richard had assaulted Chloe during one of their tutoring sessions. Before we could even defend ourselves, the school released an official suspension notice. That same evening, Richard locked himself inside his study. The door stayed shut for hours. When he finally came out, the confident teacher who once stood proudly in front of a classroom was gone forever. He never stepped onto another podium. Our daughter, Haley, paid the price alongside him. Children pointed fingers at her in the hallways. "Your dad's a creep." Those cruel words followed her everywhere. She came home crying almost every day, burying her face in my arms and begging not to go back to school. Eventually, she refused to leave the house altogether. Even my mother-in-law, Nancy, couldn't escape the humiliation. Someone threw garbage at her while she was shopping at the neighborhood grocery store. People who had smiled and greeted us for years suddenly crossed the street to avoid us, as if we carried some contagious disease. Our family became the town's favorite target. Meanwhile, Chloe walked into a local television station carrying nothing more than a medical report documenting a small bruise. It became the centerpiece of an exclusive interview titled, "A Raped Girl Speaks Out." The story exploded across every social media platform. Sympathy poured in from every direction. The school quietly settled with her for $300,000. Countless strangers praised her on TikTok for her courage, calling her a brave survivor who dared to speak the truth. My family, on the other hand, was buried beneath accusations we could never wash away. But fate had given me another chance. This time, I had been reborn. The familiar knock on my office door sent a chill through my body. Before I could answer, Chloe hurried inside, her expression just as anxious as I remembered. "Please, Sophia," she pleaded, gripping the straps of her backpack. "Can you let me join Richard's prep class? I really need this." Every word matched my memories perfectly. I sat quietly behind my desk, my hands folded together, my expression unreadable. "I'm sorry," I replied calmly. "Richard isn't offering private tutoring this year." The color drained from Chloe's face. She blinked at me, clearly expecting the same answer she had received in my previous life. The office fell into an uncomfortable silence. Even Paul, the teacher working in the neighboring cubicle, leaned around the partition to see what was happening. Chloe lowered her head. Her fingers tightened around her backpack until her knuckles turned pale. "But asked around," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Everyone told me Mr. Richard always runs an SAT prep class before the exams. My math scores are awful. He's the only teacher whose explanations actually make sense to me." She looked up, her eyes already shimmering with tears. "Sophia, I know my family can't afford much, but I'll find a way to pay the tuition. I promise." I had heard every single word before. Last time, those tears had fooled me. I believed I was helping a hardworking student chase her dream. I had even secretly paid her first week's tuition with my own money because I couldn't bear to see her struggle. And how had she repaid that kindness? She destroyed Richard. She destroyed my daughter. She destroyed my entire family. Then she climbed over the ruins of our lives and accepted applause from millions of strangers. Looking into those innocent, watery eyes now, all I felt was disgust twisting inside my stomach. I kept my voice steady. The school's curriculum changed this year. Richard won't be taking any additional students. Chloe bit her lip, so hard it nearly turned white. "Then could I just stand in the back of the classroom?" she asked quickly. "I don't need a seat. I won't interrupt anyone. I just want to listen." "No." The single word left my mouth without the slightest hesitation. Her shoulders visibly stiffened. I continued before she could speak again. Not even for the last 10 minutes. Each refusal seemed to deepen the wounded expression on her face. Before long, the conversation had attracted attention. Several teachers wandered over to the office entrance, pretending to organize paperwork while openly listening. One of them frowned at me. "Sophia," she said in a low voice, "she's practically begging you. Isn't this a little heartless?" Another teacher sighed. "Her grades have dropped badly. If she doesn't improve, she'll probably have to retake the SAT next year." "Richard has always worked harder than everyone else," someone else added. "One more student won't make much difference." I slowly raised my eyes to meet theirs. How familiar. In my previous life, these exact words had cornered me. Just help her. You're educators, aren't you? Don't think about money. This is a child's future. Don't be so cold. Those voices had pressured me until I finally gave in. Yet when Richard was accused, they were the first people to erase our phone numbers. The first to pretend they had never known us. The first to gossip behind our backs. Not one of them admitted they had pushed Chloe into our lives. As more people sided with her, Chloe's tears flowed even faster. She sniffled pitifully. I really don't want to cause trouble, she whispered. I just want the chance to get into a good university. She wiped at her eyes before continuing. My dad ruined his back doing construction work. My mom washes dishes at a diner every day. They told me if I can't earn a scholarship, we can't afford college. Her voice broke on the last sentence. Then, as if overcome with gratitude and shame, she suddenly bent forward into a deep bow. I reacted instantly. Taking a step to the side, I avoided it completely. Don't. She froze halfway down. A flicker of embarrassment flashed across her face before she slowly straightened. I looked at her with icy indifference. If you want to study, I said evenly, then study. But don't come into my office putting on a performance. Just then, the office door swung open. The vice principal, Mr. Harrison, stepped inside with a deep frown. His sharp gaze swept across the crowded room before settling on Chloe. What is going on here? The moment Chloe saw him, her eyes lit up as though she had spotted her rescuer. She hurried over. Mr. Harrison, she said anxiously, I wanted to sign up for Mr. Richard's math prep class, but Sophia said he isn't offering it this year. Mr. Harrison turned toward me, surprise flickering across his face. Not offering it, he asked. Why wasn't I informed? I remained seated, my tone calm and even. Richard's schedule is already full. Between teaching, grading, and preparing lessons, he doesn't have the time or energy to take on additional tutoring. His expression hardened. Sophia, you work in administration. You should understand that we have to look at the bigger picture. Chloe is one of our priority students this semester, and Richard is one of our strongest teachers. He shouldn't be choosing which students deserve help. A quiet chuckle escaped me. Mr. Harrison, I asked, are we discussing an officially approved school program or an unofficial private arrangement? The question caught him completely off guard. His mouth opened, then closed again. For several seconds, no one spoke. The teachers gathered at the doorway exchanged awkward glances. Everyone knew the rules. Private prep schools operated under strict regulations. Any after-school tutoring organized through the school had to be properly documented. Billing records, attendance sheets, parental consent forms, classroom assignments, everything had to be filed. There were no exceptions. In my previous life, Chloe's greatest trick had been turning an ordinary after-school question and answer session into a so-called secret private lesson. That tiny gray area had become the weapon that destroyed Richard. This time, I intended to erase every gray area before it even existed. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. Of course, it's an official school program. Wonderful. I smiled politely. Then we'll follow the standard procedures. I continued before anyone could interrupt. The tutoring sessions will be held in the AV classroom. We'll collect signed parental consent forms beforehand, record attendance for every session, and conduct all lessons under the school's security cameras. For the briefest moment, Chloe's face lost all its color. Her eyes widened ever so slightly before she quickly lowered them. It lasted less than a second. No one noticed. Except me. Mr. Harrison simply nodded in approval. Good, he said. Let's do it that way. I turned to Chloe. You heard him. If you truly want to study, we'll do everything according to school policy. She bit down on her lower lip. Several long seconds passed before she finally forced out a smile. Okay. The words sounded obedient enough, but the resentment burning beneath her lowered lashes was impossible to miss. It flashed across her face before disappearing just as quickly. I quietly committed the look to memory. That evening, after dinner, I found Richard standing on the balcony. Stacks of freshly graded exams covered the small table beside him. His reading glasses rested low on the bridge of his nose, and faint traces of white chalk still clung to the cuffs of his neatly pressed shirt. He looked exhausted. When he noticed me, he smiled gently. What's wrong, babe? The sight made my chest tighten. In my previous life, this was exactly how he had looked before everything fell apart. The crisp white shirt, the black-rimmed glasses, the faint dust from the classroom. Back then, he had still laughed easily. Later, even the sound of his phone vibrating would make him flinch. Thousands of hateful comments had stripped away his confidence, one cruel sentence at a time. He had done nothing wrong. Yet strangers demanded explanations. No matter how many times he denied the accusations, no one wanted to believe him. There has to be some truth to it. There's no smoke without fire. Those words echoed across the internet until they became his sentence. I took a slow breath, forcing myself back to the present. Starting tomorrow, I said quietly, you are never to be alone with Chloe. Not even for a second. Richard blinked in confusion. Chloe, he repeated. The student who came by today? Yes. He tilted his head. Did something happen? I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to tell him about our ruined family, about Haley's tears, about the sleepless nights, about the way he had slowly stopped smiling. But the truth caught in my throat. Instead, I forced out a weak smile. I had a terrible nightmare. Richard didn't laugh. He never dismissed my fears, no matter how unreasonable they sounded. He simply waited for me to continue. So I described everything as though it had only happened in a dream. How Chloe might try to frame him. How innocent interactions could be twisted into accusations. How even kindness could become evidence against him. Richard listened without interrupting once. When I finally finished, he nodded thoughtfully. I'll be careful. I slowly shook my head. No. Being careful isn't enough. I reached into my folder and slid a neatly folded sheet of paper across the table. I made something. He unfolded it. At the top was a simple title. 10 Rules for Protecting Yourself. The further he read, the deeper the crease between his brows became. The rules were straightforward. Never meet a student alone. Keep classroom doors open whenever possible. Record every tutoring session. Communicate only through official school channels. Never accept gifts. Never drive a student home. Document every unusual interaction. And several more. When he reached the bottom of the page, he looked up at me. Sophia. His voice was unusually quiet. Do you know something I don't? For a long moment, I simply met his eyes. Then I answered softly. I only know that human nature is sometimes much harder to solve than any math equation. Silence settled between us. The evening breeze drifted across the balcony, gently rustling the stack of test papers. Finally, Richard folded the paper with great care and tucked it into his shirt pocket. I trust you, he said without hesitation. I'll follow every one of them. Only then did the knot in my chest loosen slightly. The following afternoon, Chloe officially joined Richard's 6-person AP Calculus prep class. This time, I personally handled every arrangement. Instead of using an ordinary classroom, I reserved the school's AV room on the 3rd floor. The room was equipped with ceiling-mounted security cameras, synchronized audio recording equipment, and a digital attendance system. Nothing that happened inside would go undocumented. As Chloe stood at the front desk signing the attendance sheet, I noticed her hand pause ever so slightly above the paper. Her pen hovered in midair. I stepped beside her. Any questions? She looked up with the same sweet, harmless smile she always wore. No. She capped her pen and handed it back to me. Sophia, you've really thought of everything. I smiled pleasantly. We have to protect both our students. I held her gaze for a brief moment before finishing. And our teachers. For just an instant, her smile stiffened. Then it returned as though nothing had happened. Behind us, the small digital voice recorder sitting on the teacher's desk quietly blinked to life. It wasn't anything unusual. The device was standard school equipment. Every recorder had its own serial number. Every checkout required a signature. Every return was logged with the exact time and date. The system had existed for years to resolve classroom disputes. In my previous life, not a single person had thought to turn one on. This time, I refused to let a single detail slip through the cracks. Every tutoring session was recorded. Every attendance sheet was signed. Every classroom was chosen carefully. Every interaction followed school policy to the letter. If Chloe wanted to repeat what she had done in my previous life, she would find every door firmly shut. For the first 2 weeks, she was the picture of a model student. She arrived on time, took diligent notes, asked appropriate questions, and left with the rest of the class. She was so quiet, so cooperative, that for a fleeting moment I almost believed I had changed our fate. Maybe this life really would be different. Maybe. I had worried for nothing. Then the 3rd week arrived, and Chloe finally began testing the boundaries. One afternoon, the dismissal bell echoed through the hallway. The other 5 students packed their books and filed out of the AV room, chatting about homework and weekend plans. Only Chloe remained. She stood beside Richard's desk, clutching her workbook against her chest. "Mr. Richard," she asked timidly, "could you explain this problem one more time? I still don't understand." Richard's eyes instinctively shifted toward the classroom door. Almost immediately, the teaching assistant I had specifically assigned to every session stepped inside. She smiled warmly. "I'll stay and listen too," she said. "Maybe I'll learn something." For a split second, disappointment flashed across Chloe's face. It vanished almost instantly. "Oh." She forced a smile. "Never mind. I'll figure it out at home." Without another word, she hugged her workbook tighter and hurried away. Richard watched her leave before quietly locking the classroom door behind him. A few days later, she tried something else. Richard had just finished a faculty meeting and was walking down the second-floor hallway. As he approached the staircase, Chloe suddenly stumbled. She collapsed against the wall, one hand pressed dramatically against her stomach. "Mr. Richard." Her voice came out weak and trembling. "I feel so dizzy." Before Richard could take another step, I rounded the corner. The school nurse followed directly behind me, carrying a medical kit. I looked at Chloe with concern. "What happened?" "Come on. Let's get you to the clinic." The moment Chloe saw me, panic flickered across her face. Her expression changed so quickly that anyone else might have missed it. She swallowed nervously. "I think my blood sugar just dropped. I'll be fine after sitting down for a minute." The nurse crouched beside her anyway, checking her pulse while I quietly observed every reaction. A minute later, Chloe insisted she felt perfectly fine. She refused further examination and hurried off to class. When those attempts failed, she changed tactics again. Late one evening, Richard's phone buzzed. A Snapchat notification. The message came from Chloe. "Mr. Richard, I really can't handle this pressure anymore. I don't want to live. Can we please talk? Just the two of us. Please don't tell anyone." Reading those words sent a chill down my spine. In my previous life, screenshots of nearly identical messages had spread across the internet. The conversations had been selectively edited. Entire sections had disappeared. The public asked only one question. If nothing inappropriate happened, why was she only confiding in him? That single question had been enough to destroy Richard's reputation. This time, he didn't reply, not even with a single word. Instead, he took screenshots immediately. Then, he forwarded every message directly into the school's administrative group chat. He tagged the school counselor. He tagged Chloe's homeroom teacher. He tagged Mr. Harrison. Within 10 minutes, the counselor had contacted Chloe's parents and requested an emergency meeting. Every step was documented. Every notification carried a timestamp. Every action left a paper trail, exactly as I had planned. The following morning, Chloe arrived at school with swollen, bloodshot eyes. She walked straight toward my desk. When she stopped in front of me, her voice dropped into a whisper cold enough to send a shiver through the room. "Sophia, I trusted Mr. Richard. Why did you have to turn this into such a huge issue?" I slowly lifted my eyes from the documents I was reviewing. "Because your life is more important than your secrets." She stared at me. Neither of us spoke. For one brief second, the timid, vulnerable girl disappeared. The bitterness underneath finally surfaced. A faint, mocking smile tugged at the corner of her lips. "You really enjoy pretending to be a saint, don't you?" I quietly closed the folder in front of me. "And you?" I met her eyes, without blinking. "Are a remarkably good actress." Her smile froze. For the first time since we'd met, I saw genuine surprise on her face. But it lasted only a heartbeat. She lowered her gaze and let out a soft laugh. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Then she turned and walked away. I watched her disappear down the hallway. Deep down, I knew she wouldn't stay patient forever. Someone like Chloe never accepted defeat. She simply waited for a better opportunity. That opportunity came exactly 1 month later. It was a Friday afternoon. I was sitting in the administration office, reviewing next week's classroom schedule, when my phone suddenly began vibrating nonstop. One notification, then another, and another. Within seconds, nearly every parents' group chat erupted. Messages flooded in faster than I could read them. Before I had time to open any of them, someone posted a link in the school's public forum. The headline made my blood run cold. 18-year-old prep school student breaks down. I'm too terrified to attend class after what my math teacher did to me. For a long moment, I couldn't move. My fingertips went numb as I tapped the video. The thumbnail filled the screen. Chloe sat in her school uniform, Her eyes were swollen, almost shut from crying. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she faced the camera with trembling lips. I struggled with this for a long time. I didn't know whether I should speak up. She wiped away another tear. He's a respected teacher. And I'm just a student. Her voice cracked. That night, after everyone